growing as fast as we have, as early as we have, has been exciting for us. But how has it landed on you?
It's a little surreal. I mean, again, if somebody would have told me 2 months ago, A, I'd be on TikTok, B, I'd have 50,000 followers, C, one post would get, or cumulative of 20 million views, I'd say, put the crack pipe down, dude, back away, stop it. But here we are, and it's rewarding, it's refreshing, it's overwhelming, it's bizarre, it's all of those things.
It's been such a fun experience for us too, and obviously even now, if you look on the screen, you get comments coming through. Every second there's a follow, every second there's a like, every second there's a comment. I mean, no matter what, within a minute, 2 minutes, there's so much different levels of engagement. It is, on our side, managing the accounts, super stimulating, because I have the notifications off. I don't know if you have it off, but it doesn't buzz my phone. But when I go within the app, there's always something new. It's always, so when you pull up the app, it'll show you 99 plus. That's what it'll say in terms of notifications, because it doesn't get over 3 digits. But no matter what, every time I check it, it's over 99 plus. So it's always it's cool that you've built a platform to create this dialogue. Obviously, not all of it's positive or negative, but did you ever think that this was something that you would have influence on, or become a micro influencer?
Not in a million years. I mean, I'd never even thought about getting on TikTok. Like I told you guys at the beginning, when you were flirting with me about the idea of getting on TikTok or getting on social media, I said, look, I don't dance, I don't watch cat videos, I don't want anything to do with TikTok. And y'all slowly explained to me, because I'm the village idiot on these things, the not only the brand reach that you can build, but the communication you can establish, the recognition that's there, and frankly, the conversations that's there. So it's overwhelming to me. What Mike, who owns Method 360, we were just talking, and he said, did you think you'd ever get on TikTok? And I said, absolutely not. He said, well, think about it this way. You're probably that guy, 150 years ago that always rode a horse. And you were never going to ride anything but a horse, and then they invent this automobile, and you thought, I'm never going to get in that contraption. I'm never going to get in that contraption. And a couple of years later, you saw the car spinning by your horse, and you thought, well, maybe I'll get a car. So it's a really good analogy.
It is. And, digging kind of further into the analytics, as you see here, your audience is 82% male, 17% female, and 1% other. So you got some aliens there.
Yeah.
But the breakdown is interesting. I mean, across the board, it's pretty even. You have 18 to 24, 25 to 34, at closer to 32%. So the age group, me and Tommy's age is definitely the most, but it's pretty even split across. And then 57% is actually in the United States. So you have a global audience, Canada, Saudi Arabia, Nigeria, which is, to a post that we'll
How do
get
you make
to.
that omelet?
How do you make that omelet? But I mean, it's fascinating. We're always looking into the numbers, always looking at the analytics. People look forward to your posts now. They look forward to the next episode. A lot of comments that come in, people are saying first comment, being the first comment, like bragging that they were there first. I mean, you only really do that for pages that have influence. So it's a race to get to the posts. It's a race to see what you have to say. You'll make comments about Trump on one side, maybe Gavin Newsom or a Democratic governor on the other. You get both sides riled up. But what I appreciate is that you're just your honest self. You're genuine, and you don't care about the politics as much as you care about the fact at hand and what's going on, and actions and decision making. And you're not tied to just one thought. You're open to hearing new ideas. You're open to different dynamics, and I really appreciate that as a partner working with you, because you're obviously an expert in your field, and we're going to get later down the road kind of talk about more of your expertise and cross-examination. But I mean, it's been a great journey on our side too. I mean, we've had so much fun doing this. Tommy, do you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, when I look at the analytics, it's actually insane just seeing what we're able to accomplish in the past couple months. But honestly, seeing that 58% is from the US and the remaining is all the other countries around the world.
All the places I've never been to.
It's
I
just
get as
shocking.
far as Waxahachie, and that's about it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so you have a global fan base. Actually, what is it? 43% of your viewers are from outside the U.S., which is insane.
You know, and I've got nothing but you guys to thank for this. I would not, you know, not that we've won a gold medal or the Nobel Peace Prize or something. It's TikTok, for God's sakes. But I would have never been on it but for you guys. So I'll always owe that debt of gratitude to me, because let's talk more about my favorite subject, me. You know, I've tried cases for 42 years, some really high-profile stuff. You know, Branch Davidian and Enron and Paxton's impeachment and this case and that case and the other. And when you try a case like that, you know, there's some attention that comes to it, right? Mm-hmm. But it's literally your 15 minutes of fame, right? And which is fine. I didn't get into this to become famous or rich. I got into it to help people. But that having been said, that brief stardom flicks away quickly. I mean, there was a 5-part series about my role in the Branch Davidian case on Paramount that, you know, just dissipated. It was great to see. Yeah. It was cool to be a part of. But I never got any recognition, like going through an airport or going to the grocery store, about that. You know, nobody ever said anything. Now, I walk through Hobby or I walk through Love, and they'll come up, they'll squint their eyes, and they'll look at me. Are you that lawyer? And my response is, objection vague. What lawyer? There's a lot. And then they hear my voice. Oh my God, it's you! It's you! and I get recognition and some sort of familiarity or I don't know, kudos. It cracks me up. I mean, it's fun. But it's a new world that we live in. Well, it's a different world than it was 5 years ago or 10 years ago. Completely different.
What's interesting to me, and I'm curious about your opinion on this, whenever you're doing a high-profile case, and you said that the times that you do get your 5 minute of fame is usually post, you know, during those high-profile cases, depending on what the case is and the verdict, that could be bad. Like, it could be a lot of like hate mail or,
sure.
or it could be a lot of negativity. I feel like in this situation, in the current circumstance, like with your show and building up your show, people are actually getting to know you and not the case that you're in. So people like even John yesterday was like, hey, like I'm learning stuff about you and I've been your friend for years. Right. So what is your opinion on that?
It's much more positive. I mean, for example, Paxton, I was one of the lawyers representing Ken Paxton's impeachment, whatever. My point is, he's a divisive personality, right? A lot of people like him, a lot of people hate him. And with that, if you represent somebody that divisive, a lot of people are going to like you, a lot of people are going to hate you. So, you know, you always get this notion, well, you should try my case because it's high profile. Well, high profile ain't always good for the lawyer. I mean, generally it is, but oftentimes I've been told I'm never going to hire you because you represented X, Y, or Z. So there's always a plus and a minus to it in the high profile matters. But to your point, Tommy, not one person has come up to me and said, I hate your TikTok. You look stupid. Now we have commenters on there. God bless them. I love the hate mail. But the attention or the recognition or the acknowledgement or however we want to phrase it is overwhelmingly positive. I mean, I see people in the tunnel system in Houston. We have an underground tunnel. Everybody goes to lunch because it's so friggin' hot. And I'll be stopped 5-6 times at lunch going, I love your shit, dude. Keep doing it. Or, would you stop it? All I get is my son texting me your TikTok stuff. It's interrupting my day, but it's overwhelmingly positive, which is nice, right? Yeah. And again, all jokes aside, what we do as criminal defense lawyers is a rough gig. Mm-hmm. It's a hard job. Our clients can be very difficult. The juries can be very difficult. The judges, the prosecutors. I mean, we live in kind of a legal sewer. I mean, there's a bunch of shit floating around us 24/7, 365.
Even the public perception is
100%. And sooner or later, you start to smell like shit and you start to feel like shit because you're living in a sewer. And this helps me breathe, and it helps. There's an affirmation or a reaffirmation. Hanging out with you guys is frankly, it's energizing. And it's not just because you're pulling my pud and telling me how great I am. That's not the case at all. But it's life affirming and professionally affirming. It's awesome.
I appreciate that. And there's a term for this. It's called glazing. Are you familiar with this? This is what the kids. This is what they say. Glazing. It's when you. If you're hyping someone up too much, they'll be like, "Oh, you're glazing him," and we glaze Dan often here, and I'm happily a glazer because
glazing. I learn something new every day. Glazing.
Well, you got aura, so we have to glaze you. These are
I got an aura ring.
But on a serious note, like you mentioned, I mean, for us, it's like, we consume a lot of this social media stuff. Like we're always doing some form of research, we call it, to see what's trending and what's popular and why. And when you're consuming it as much as we do, you see that there's so much just like brain rot, and there's nothing really of substance that exists. And there's a generation, the generation that you're in, and other generations, above us, that
boomer.
That they've
not sooner, not
boomer, not sooner.
The amount of times I've seen that on the comment section is just like,
I mean, but the reality is that generation of boomers, they're not necessarily comfortable putting themselves out there in a space like social media,
for sure,
but there's so much wisdom and experience and stories that you guys have that I think that I'm fascinated in genuinely, that I feel like there's an audience for. And that was the original reason I came out to you, is just because I was like, Dan, I could listen to you talk for hours, and I'm consuming content all the time. And if this existed out there, I'm almost positive that there will be an audience. And lo and behold, everything's relative. 50K followers to somebody who has 1 million or 2 million doesn't seem like much, but the fact that we got to 50 on TikTok within 60, 70 days is impressive. And we don't really talk about it often, but we have almost 10,000 plus on Instagram.
We're going to hit 10K on Instagram this week. We're probably going to hit 1K on YouTube this week.
And and we started May 1st. So it hasn't even been 90 days. It hasn't even been a full year. The trajectories that we're on, all feel really positive, and the audience is global. There's an appetite overseas for somebody like you who tells the stories that you do and the way that you tell them. What I appreciate more than anything, Dan, is that you're just a good person, and you're an honest person, and you're humble, even though you've accomplished so many things. And there's so many people online who haven't accomplished anything, but they'll tell you everything about everything. So it's refreshing to work with somebody who you can learn from, but also is still very curious and is asking questions and is open. So the glazing session will end soon, but I do appreciate it, and I feel like so does the audience. So the significant amount of people really. It's refreshing, your content online.
I don't want to get all wind chimes and Joshua Tree and crystals on us, but I'm not a religious person. I'd like to think I'm a little spiritual, becoming more spiritual, but all this stuff sort of lines up if you look at it from kind of a macro perspective and then drill down. And I love the commenters that call me an alcoholic and put the bottle down, and I haven't had a drink in 3 years. I needed a drink. I needed to stop, and I did. But it cracks me up. I would never work for that red-faced alcoholic. Well, you're not getting offered a job, so we're cool. But I stopped drinking. I've lost 85 pounds, and I've just re-energized myself. But to your point, and again, fun fact for those at home. I've got the Serenity Prayer tattooed on my left sleeve, and on my right forearm I have Dylan Thomas's "Do not go gently" into the first 3 lines of that. All that to say, at 68, soon to be 69, my life has been re-energized, right? And a lot of levels, quitting alcohol, getting in shape, frankly, experiencing what I went through with the folks at Epic and how gracious they've been, you guys, the podcast, all of it is such an upward swing in my life. And, it's apropos to say nothing more or nothing less than I had to get out of my comfort zone to do all of that shit. Because unless you change your shit, your shit's never going to change. And I guess to the older geezers at home, get out there, put yourself out there. It's a scary world. It's different. You know, am I subject to ridicule on some of this stuff? Rightly so. But I'm so much more comfortable in my own skin than I was even 2 or 3 years ago, and all of it is a natural progression. So it's been awesome.
Yeah, no, that's great. And you know, to reiterate that, so you know, do you have like if you had just one really strong piece of advice? I want to ask you two versions of this. So, what's your advice for people who are kind of entering their manhood? So, you know, kind of getting into their adult stages of life, 21, 22, and approaching, you know, what they're going to consider adulthood. Like, what's your advice to people who, you know, are entering their professional lives and, you know, their lives beyond school and when they find independence to find success in some sort of, you know, happiness? Let
me answer it in a way that sounds less preachy, meaning what would I tell myself at 22 years old, right? If my 68-year-old self could talk to my 22-year-old self, I would say, slow the fuck down, savor the moment, look around, quit thinking you know everything because you don't know anything, right? I at 22, 23, 24, I knew everything about everybody. I was so cocksure of myself and what I was going to achieve and how I needed to get there. And to some extent, the proverb or the adage about, you know, be careful of what you ask for because you might get it has come true. But I lived my life with the way a racehorse has blinders on. I never looked around. I never tried to associate myself with people of a different color or people with different thoughts. I was, you know, a frat boy until I was, you know, 55 years old, more or less. Still am to some extent, but keep your eyes open, explore other paths that you never thought of. Be patient, and most of all, just do the right thing. It's not that hard. And again, to jump back, Aaron, to the, you know, I don't believe, and you know, people in AA will hate me for saying this, but I don't think alcoholism is the disease that most people paint it to be a disease. Cancer is a disease, right? There's all people drink too much, in my view, and again, that's not particularly apropos to your question, not because they have a disease, but, well, they do have a disease. They're assholes, right? And that's why you drink too much. That's why I drank to excess, is because you have a hole in your soul that you're trying to fill up, and you can't fill that hole without booze. So, but more responsive to look around, take care of yourself, be healthy, get in a regular workout routine. Get the fuck away from your iPhone, from your iPad, from your computer. Take a walk, lift a weight, hit a ball, ride a motorcycle. Get the fuck out of your mom's basement, you know. There's so many people that are addicted to, and I know this is contrarian advice coming from a TikTok where you're going to be looking at your phone, but there's so much more to life than is in that goddamn thing that Steve Jobs invented.
That's bars. Watch the Dan clip and then get off your phone immediately after. Like and follow and then get off. And then one more thing here, and you kind of touched on it before, but I do want to kind of run it back, maybe kind of a little more poignant. But what about people who are older and who feel like their life might be over, who spend most of their time kind of reflecting on woulda, coulda, shoulda? Do you have any advice? Because you just mentioned, you know, how much has changed just in the last 2 years, and you're approaching 70, and you know, you found kind of this new
69.
69. There we go.
The position and the age.
The position and the age. So, what's your advice to people who do kind of hold maybe a little bit more regret or aren't happy with their current state and are in a later stage of life? Do you have any?
Yeah, I was there, right? At 65 when I quit, I thought, you know, this is it. And let me go there for just a second. I'm a big off-road motorcycle fan, motocross, supercross, desert racing, Baja 1000. That's my shit. I love that stuff. And there's a hero of mine named Roger DeCoster. Roger's a 5-time world champion. Had his poster on the wall of my house in Houston there he is. There's the man. Roger's a 5-time world champion. He is Michael Jordan. He's Phil Jackson. He's Kobe Bryant. He is literally the man. I mean, that's his nickname, is the man. He's had the greatest impact on the sport of off-road motorcycle racing than anybody. It's not even close. He's just lovely. The old adage about you never want to meet your heroes is because they'll disappoint you is complete bullshit. He is the coolest guy I've ever met. I just love the dude. But the point being, through Roger, I met this kid who was, the badass at the time named Ryan Dungey. And Ryan had won, 4 or 5 Supercross, motocross championship. Great kid. But after he retired, he was on our suite at the Supercross in Houston. There's Ryan. And I'd talked to him, but never spent any time with him. And, these kids train at an incredibly high level. I mean, you can talk about football, you can talk about baseball, but what these kids do is at least as challenging and certainly a lot riskier than any stick and ball sport will ever be. Their fitness, their diet, all that is up there with any NFL player. Point being, I was looking at Ryan, and I mean this in the most heterosexual way possible. I looked into his eyes, and the white of his eyes, just whiter than my shirt. It's just like, Jesus Christ. And I thought to myself, this fucker has never had a Twinkie, much less the drink of the devil, Red Bull and vodka like I consumed. And I walked away thinking how amazing he's that disciplined. So this was, I don't know, Aaron, 2 or 3 weeks later, I went out and I had my usual 3 or 4 Red Bull and Tito's. And I woke up the next morning and my eyes looked like, they're just busted red vessels. And I walked past the mirror and I said, this old fat guy. And I thought, who's that guy in my back? Oh shit, that's me. And I looked into my eyes and I thought to myself, Ryan Dungey's eyes have never looked like this. I got to stop this. And again, I mean that in the most heterosexual way possible. But that was the final tipping point in terms of my alcohol use. I stopped. I went into AA and stopped. But to point to your question, what do you say to another old guy who feels like, life has passed him by or he's missed out on the opportunities? Get off your ass and change it, right? That's what you do. You read great books. Go read Atomic Habits. Go read the 5 a.m. Club. Go read a plethora. What's her name that just wrote Let Them? There's great books out there, but unless you feed your mind with positive stuff, you're going to end up going to Magnolia in Waco with your overweight wife and looking at products bought from China with the label scraped off of them. Change your shit. It's not going to change by itself.
No, that's great. And I think a lot of people need to hear that because people do feel stuck in their ways. But what do they say? You change your habits, you change your future, right?
Absolutely.
So it's just a matter of changing your habits and taking control. And you're kind of a living example, although you've seen success at different stages of your life and you've lived, 3, 4, 5 different lives, it doesn't stop you from continuing to strive to be a better version of yourself, even at the age of 68, which I find to be very inspirational, Dan. I think it's really cool, man. Like I said, I'm going to be labeled as Glazer #1 on the show, but I'll happily take that title when it comes to you.
So it's safe to say that another man's eyes changed your future.
Jesus Christ, here we go. Yeah, I guess that makes me a chicken hawk. I don't know.
All the women, but it took just one man's eyes. Yeah. All the beautiful women that he's looked into.
We're going to get a whole new group of demographics following us pretty soon.
That male percentage is shooting up a couple more percentages.
99%.
It's going from 80 to 100. I do want to...
I'm going to get a lot more others.
No, he's right. The others is going from 1% to 20%. That's for sure. I do want to kind of take a quick look on the subject of your profiles. And, there's speculation about, is TikTok going to get banned? What's going to happen? You know, I guess we'll see, right? I mean, we looked into the analytics and we looked into the overall revenue, the impact it does to the GDP. I think $26 billion in 2023 and over 250,000 jobs. You know, jobs like what me and Tommy do, you know, are built behind apps like TikTok. So are they going to just pull the plug? I guess we'll see. I don't see it happening, but for the time being, let's take a quick look at some of the comments to your videos here. Okay, these are some of the funny ones that I pulled up. Horse Latitude says here, if you are constantly red as a beet, I'm not working for you.
Cool. I'm not offering you a job. That's great.
Kevin, what's wrong with paternity leave? I like this one because Kevin's not the only one who's brought up the paternity leave. I had 12 weeks and paid and enjoyed every minute with our baby. A lot of dads in the chat upset about the paternity leave comment.
Look, first off, ladies, it's a joke, right? All these things are a joke. There's some truth, like in most jokes. There's some truth in relation to a joke. But if he and his mangina hadn't swollen up, he might have understood that I said, don't bring it up in the first job interview. I didn't say it would. We've actually had people call the office and talk to my staff going, you know, that's a violation of the law. If he doesn't let you take a paternity leave, you can sue him. It's like, yeah, I'm a lawyer. I know that. It was kind of a joke, and it was meant if you brought it up at the first job interview.
Well, how does your staff react to that when they get those calls? Because we work with you in a different capacity, and our experience is nothing but positive. So it's like, I'd laugh at these comments, but what does your staff think of stuff like that?
They laugh their ass off. Look, I just like any other guy, I have a temper. I can be difficult, but I'm generally pretty easy to get along with. I'm not demanding. I don't yell. I don't scream unless they really deserve it, which is rare. I've never had an employee quit in 42 years of doing this because, at least to my knowledge, I've never had one quit because they felt that I acted improperly towards them. I love my staff. I couldn't get by without my staff. So they know who I am versus how people interpret, you know, a punchline on a TikTok video.
Of course. It's the comment section is just hilarious because they like so much.
So he just wants people he
exactly
can exploit.
Yeah, I pulled that one up for that reason.
I overpay. If anything, I overpay. Do I work 60, 70, 80 hours a week? You're goddamn right I do. Does my staff? No. My secretaries, my support staff, they work 40 hours a week and they go home. Teaser Pony, my associate, and other folks that work for me as lawyers, do they work longer hours? Yeah, because they want to, because they need to, and they realize that that's the only way you can get the job done. But, you know, it's great.
I like this because it's sandwiching what a man only hires rational, hardworking people, and this needs to be law for being hired. So on top of all the negative, there are people who, you know, find your masculinity and your just level of intensity as a, you know, positive overall trait, which
I actually
is fun.
had, Aaron, to your point, I had a really good lawyer, and I won't name him, who came up to me again in the tunnel system, or I walked out to him and whatever. And he said, you stole those. You stole those from us. I'm like, what are you talking about? You stole those fights. That's like our scorecard. How did you know? So if I'm an asshole, I'm not a singular asshole. I'm surrounded by others.
Are you burning that suit after all the comments?
I'll pull these comments up. So what about a poorly fitted blue check suit and number 6 on your list, checkered suit. So taking shots at your suits.
So first off, ladies, it's a sport coat. It's not a suit. And I know that may be skinning that a little too thinly for you, but I love that. I love that sport coat. I've got 25 other ones, and I'm not going to quit wearing them. Would that be too much in a suit? Of course it would. Would I wear that to a federal courtroom? I would not. Would I wear that out to dinner or taking my wife out or going somewhere? I would. So, you know, to each his own.
Well, we know some lawyers that would wear that in a suit with some sandals on a plane.
The squirrel man. The profile picture is a squirrel. And
Let's
talking
finish
about
this up. Okay, and this
fashion.
one is, again, more on the positive side. And obviously, Dan, working with Epic, working with Muslims, you have a couple different pieces of content that pertains to your experience with Muslims. And these ones, I appreciated, right? Sonny says, I've never had a bad experience with a Muslim neighbor. They have always been courteous and polite. And that's got over 5,000 likes, which is crazy. And then the one under, which is a Free Palestine banner, it seems like, but it says, as a Muslim, these comments have me bawling. Decades of hate and racism, and to have people appreciate you is just really touching. Alhamdulillah, which is, praise be to God, essentially was what that means. But this is not the only comment that's like this. There's hundreds of thousands, actually, of comments that are coming from different Muslims and Muslim accounts, and even people who aren't Muslim themselves, like Sonny, who just is talking about having a Muslim neighbor. But whether it's a Muslim or it's a individual who has a relationship with people of the faith who understand who they are, there's a lot of appreciation, Dan, for you just being human ultimately, and humanizing a group of people who have been peppered with misinformation and kind of bullied in the mainstream media for their faith, let alone the type of people they actually are and what they actually represent. So what are your thoughts on this, like, Muslim love?
I it's just organic from my perspective. I grew up in the west side of Houston. We had 1,000 kids, 1,100 kids in my graduating class. We had 2 or 3 blacks, 4 or 5 Hispanics. Muslims, are you kidding me? I didn't even know what that was. And certainly my experience as I aged and had a few different life experiences, I just didn't really give a lot of thought to whether somebody was a Muslim or wasn't. It just wasn't a big deal. 9/11 happened, and did I jump on the bandwagon of hating all those people? And for a second, yeah. But I wasn't so naive that I didn't understand that, there are bad eggs in every basket, right? And when you just do the math, Muslims are 1/3 of the world's population, and if they were all bad, we wouldn't be sitting here and having this conversation. But as a client base, Epic was my first exposure to people of the Muslim faith, and they have been wonderful. They've been the most appreciative, intelligent, warm, responsible. They've been awesome. Some of the best clients I've ever had. Hell, they pay their bills, they do what I ask them to do, and they appreciate my work. That's an unusual triangle in my racket, right? Those 3, 1 or 2 of those things you might get, you don't get 3. As I told the fellow that's organizing the construction, hell, I'll buy a lot there. I love these people, but I'm glad. And again, I didn't assume responsibility with respect to Epic to lift up my Muslim brethren. I thought I could do some good, but it's wonderful to me that indirectly in a microscopic way, I'm helping to sort of tear down the stigma against them.
You have a recent clip talking about how Sharia law, the perception of Sharia law is nonsense in the Western world, and that clip got reposted probably over 1,000 times, and on a lot of people saying thank you for shedding some light in this and sort of talking about this. So I think it's great.
Yeah, it's one of those things to my fellow Muslims, as far as a message I have, is that, like Dan explained, 9/11, if people are busy in their own lives, in their own worlds, with their work, with their family, with their own kind of situations, and they don't have time to, indulge in news, or they haven't had experiences with other people of other faiths, like it's easy to get kind of tricked and to be, a little bit brainwashed in terms of your perception of what somebody might be like. So to my Muslims, it's like, continue to be patient with the people that you live with and live around, because eventually when they get to know who you are, they're going to come around and they're going to not cast those types of, negative perceptions on top of you. And I think on the other side, Dan, I think most Muslims too, they're more comfortable being represented by another Muslim because then they feel like they understand who they are. But the reality is, another piece of advice I have is, how about find the best lawyer and work with the best lawyer and allow yourself to meet other people and allow yourself to go through the experience of the unknown and to let people get to know who you are, because then it does change their perception. And, Dan is, a fan favorite for the, especially the Muslims in North Dallas, because of the epic case, and being kind of a champion for the people, because again, they're not doing anything wrong. They're just looking for more of a community to be involved with and more opportunity to be around, whether it's like a mosque or like a halal grocery store or a school that, is more based in that religion. You're somebody that we feel like super excited about, and the more Muslims that get to know you, the more DMs we get about potential, help and representation. So I think that's always really cool.
Let me sort of end this segment this way, and you know the story, Aaron, but it was so eye-opening to me. I don't know, a month ago, 6 weeks ago. We had a couple of fellows from D.C. that were very bright, that are very active in the Muslim community, whose goal it is to sort of break down the stereotypes and the hate against Muslims. And one is Yale, one is Princeton. Very bright guys. And they met, and if you call Central Casting and ask them to send you a couple of Muslims, they would send these two guys. They look as Muslim as I look white, right? And I know they're white Muslim anyway, but they met at a hookah bar and they got in a disagreement over who was the greater president, Hamilton or Jefferson, right? And they get so far in the weeds on why Hamilton was better than Jefferson and vice versa. And I'm like, shit, I had no idea about any of that stuff. So anyway, the point of it is 12 of us go to lunch in Plano, and there was a table. We needed, 12. And there was one table that had 12 people, and there were 6 folks sitting there. And the waitress walked up and said, would you mind moving to a smaller table so we could seat these 12 people? And this woman, who looked like she had just left the trailer park, and Honey Boo Boo was her daughter, and they probably haven't missed a single episode of Dance Fever or whatever the hell they watch, they looked up in disgust at those people, meaning the Muslims. Oh no, they were just so riled up over the idea that they would be asked to move to another table to accommodate them Muslims over there. And so we waited. But my point is, I wanted to go off on them like a bottle rocket. I thought that was so offensive. It was so obvious what they did, and it didn't rile either one of these guys up a whit, but my point being, they've experienced that hate, that vile, that bile their whole lives. And it's amazing to me when you look at it from a bigger perspective, how more Muslims haven't been self-radicalized and haven't reached that threshold where, you get called a whore or you get called a murderer or you get called whatever often enough, you damn sure might just turn into one, right? And I was so impressed at their unflappability and their professionalism, because I wanted to go up and punch Honey Boo Boo right in the kisser, right? And they're just like, nah, don't worry about it, dude, we got it. And it's amazing to me how y'all have tolerated that your whole life. And I'm not saying that's right or that's wrong, but it sure is. It's admirable as hell that you have lived your life without reacting in a really negative way.